Let me come back to something that I said a little bit earlier, and that is when someone is thinking about buying, maybe they're in the phase of solution aware or even product aware. They're evaluating different companies. The customer is always going to have barriers that are preventing them from making a change. And there are two different types of barriers that they might have. One barrier that people have that prevents them from buying, from changing their life, from buying a product or a service is there are barriers to themselves. The second type of barrier that a customer might have is a barrier to a product or a service. And I really want to make sure we understand this because the best brands, the strongest brands, the most profitable brands and organizations and companies and entrepreneurs understand barriers very well. And I like to call these things pain points. You'll hear that in other courses. I call them pain points. These barriers are what prevents the customer from buying from you. So let me give you an example, just going back to the plumbing analogy. If we think about the barriers that might prevent someone from purchasing a plumbing service, those barriers are probably going to be things like price. Can I trust this person? Are they going to do a good job? Those are all barriers that might just keep you from purchasing from a certain plumber. There are also barriers to yourself. You have things like it's a huge hassle to get someone to come out and fix your pipes. You have to take time out of your day. And we all know that when someone comes out to our house to do a service for us, they're not as careful about time as we might be. So they might say, hey, I'll be there between 8 and 12, sometime between 8 and 12 in order to fix your pipes, and then they don't get there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So now you've wasted an entire day waiting for them. So you might be thinking to yourself, I don't want to deal with this. So there's a barrier that's preventing you from wanting to use that plumbing service. Let me give you another example of this, and then we're going to talk about fitness. We're going to talk about your brand and how this relates to you. Let's use another product or service that solves a problem for someone to take them from a before state to an after state. And so before I talk about an actual brand, I just want to talk about the actual product, and I'm going to use the product of coffee. So if you think about why those of us who drink coffee drink that coffee, we wake up in the morning and we do not have caffeine. So how is that making us feel? I know the way that it's making me feel. I'm feeling sluggish, I'm feeling tired, I'm not feeling like interacting with anyone, and I don't want to be in that state. So I'm feeling tired, causing me to not interact with people, so there's my do, causing me to not be able to pay attention in school or not be able to really be productive at work, which is another do. So I want to have that solved. I want to get to the after state. I always say my cup of coffee is a smile in a cup. The after state of getting that caffeine is, now that you have caffeine, you're going to feel better. You're going to be more alert. You're just going to have a better mood. You're going to be able to interact with people now. You're going to be able to be productive. You're going to be able to pay attention in class. So now you're feeling better. You're able to do more things. That caffeine brought you from a before state to an after state. Now, let me talk about brands. You have barriers to going out and purchasing your coffee compared to making it yourself. And there's even barriers to making it yourself. You still have to go buy the beans. You have to grind the beans or have them ground somewhere else, or maybe you get the one that are already ground, but you still have to make the coffee in some way. So that might be a barrier as to why you don't want to make that coffee. Now, if the problem is serious enough, it overcomes the barrier. Think about the barriers that you would have to a company like Starbucks. You can go get your coffee from Starbucks, but you're going to have to wait in line, possibly. You're going to have to interact with another human being. You're going to have to deal with parking, and you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to pay a lot more at Starbucks compared to if you were just to make the coffee yourself. But here's the takeaway that I want you to get about this before and after state and the barriers that exist for yourself and for the product or service that could solve the problem for you. And so here it is. If the seriousness of the pain is higher then the strength of the barriers, both to self and to the product, the seriousness of the pain is higher than the barriers to self and to product, chances are you're going to transform yourself in some way by buying a product or a service. If, on the other hand, as you evaluate a product or a service, the barriers to self and barriers to that product or service are higher than the seriousness of your pain, then you're not going to buy that product or service. Let me give you two more examples. I want you to think about a company like Amazon. We go, and Amazon's the largest, most profitable company in the United States, I think even the world at this point in time. Think about why we go to Amazon. We want to buy something and we want it to be convenient. So we can go to Amazon and we can buy something to take us from the before state to the after state. Now, you can buy almost anything in Amazon, so when we talk about before and after, we have to talk about what you're actually buying on Amazon. But I want you to think about what Amazon does for us. And if you do this, you'll start to understand how it's become such a big company, such a profitable company, and such a great company. What Amazon does is it eliminates the barriers that exist for retailers. So for example, if you were to go buy a product that you can get from Amazon at the mall, think about what you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to drive there. You might get in traffic. You're going to have to spend gas. Once you get there, you're going to have to park. You're going to have to deal with other human beings. You might buy it from a retailer who doesn't have a good return policy. So you've gone through all of this pain in order to get that product that you want. What does Amazon do? It completely eliminates all of it. You don't have to drive anywhere. You click from the ease or from the convenience of your home, click the button, now it's going to ship to you. Oftentimes, depending on which service you have, they have free shipping. They have a great return policy, so they really create trust. What Amazon does, I think, better than almost any other brand is they eliminate the barriers that prevent us from using a product or a service. Now, I want to use another brand as an example that does something a little different, and I want to use Disneyland. So if you've never been to Disneyland, this will be maybe new to you, but most people are aware of Disneyland, and if you've been to Disneyland, this will probably ring true. Think about what Disneyland does. They don't necessarily remove barriers for us. It's extremely expensive to go to Disneyland, and yet people spend thousands of dollars, travel thousands of miles to go to Disneyland, and they don't necessarily do that to go to Six Flags Magic Mountain, not to say that that's not a fun park, they just don't spend all that money to go there. And here's the difference with Disneyland compared to any other theme park. There are barriers to Disneyland, as I just mentioned, but what they do extremely well is they really focus on the before and the after state. And think about it. What do you not have that prompts you to want to go to Disneyland? You might not have a lot of adventure in your life. Okay? You might be feeling kind of bored, kind of stuck in a rut. So that's how we're feeling. And because you're stuck in a rut, you just don't feel like you're real productive. You're not able to do as many things with your family, at work. You're just not in a state that you want to stay in. So this is the before state. You're unhappy. You want to be in the after state. So you think, if I go to Disneyland, even though it's going to cost me a ton of money to bring my family there, that after state is going to be awesome. What you're going to have is adventure. You're going to have interaction with your family, which is going to make you feel like the greatest dad or mom on earth. You're going to have the nostalgia that comes with Disneyland. You're going to be, watching your kids and getting the joy of seeing how much fun that they're having. You're going to be feeling great, and you're going to be doing all those things like riding the fun rides at Disneyland. So how does that relate to us as fitness professionals? We can think about this pretty easily. What is it that our clients, our members, don't have? They don't have the body that they want. They're not in the kind of shape that they want, but that's not the thing that's causing them to use your product or service. Remember, that's an external problem. The internal problems are going to be the things like are going to be the things like feel and do. So how are our clients feeling when they don't have the body that they want? They're probably feeling like they've got low self-esteem. They're feeling like they're just a shell of themselves. They're feeling like they're not able to go date because they just don't have the confidence to do that. Maybe they're so tired when they get home from work, they don't even have the energy to go play with their kids. So they're not able to go do those things that they know that they should be doing. Maybe they're so, overweight, they can't get out of bed, or they can't walk up the stairs. That's causing them pain, and that's internal pain, not an external pain. Yes, they don't have the body that they're looking for, but underneath that is the internal pain. That's the true reason why they want to transform. They want to buy a product or a service. Now, if they get to the after state, think about how different they're going to be. They're going to now have the body that they're looking for. They're going to be in the kind of shape that they want to be in. And how is that going to make them feel? They're going to feel more confident. They're going to feel more energetic. Instead of getting home from work and just sitting on the couch because they're so tired, they're going to more likely play with their kids, interact with their kids. They're going to be more productive at work. Maybe they're going to feel great at the beach with a bikini or with their shirt off. They're going to be maybe more social, go on more dates, all those things. Those are the seriousness of the internal problems, and that's the true pain that causes someone to want to change. Now, what are the barriers that prevents them from changing? And this is where we're really going to differentiate between barriers to self and barriers to the product or service. So let's start with self. What are some things that prevent people from changing their fitness level? What are some of the things that prevent them from losing weight? And you can probably think of a lot. In one of our execution plans that's going to be coming later, you're going to do some activities to really get specific with what these barriers to self are, as well as the external and internal problems that I've been discussing. So some of the things that might come to mind when we think of barriers to self are going to be, support system. They just don't have a good support system. All of their friends, maybe their social activities revolve around going to restaurants and bars and just not being at the gym. So if they start going to the gym, they might feel like they have to make all new friends. That's a huge barrier. There might be time. They have a busy life. They've got kids. They got careers, and it's just hard to make it to the gym. That's going to be a huge barrier to self that's preventing them from making this change. One of the strongest ones is fear. Our clients are fearful of change. They might be fearful of the gym because the gym is full of freaks in their mind. Big people sweating, muscles everywhere, loud noises with weights clanging and stuff like that. It can be an intimidating place for someone. So they might be fearful of just going to the gym. They might be fearful that they're not going to do well. They might be fearful that it's just not going to work. They're going to fail. And that's going to be a really strong barrier that's going to prevent them from making the change. So they might be pain aware, but they're not solution aware yet because they're just like, yeah, it's pain, but there's too many barriers. I can't solve this. It's not worth it. But let's say they start thinking, well, it might be something that triggered it, and if you study triggers, there are certain things that cause someone to go from thinking about making a change because they're in the pain state to actually making a change where they start looking at solutions and products. So a trigger could be something like a death in the family or a health problem that causes you to want to make a change. I remember I had a client once who I asked him, what kinds of things made you decide to finally make a change after he had been thinking about making fitness more of a part of his life for years. And he said, just today, I was walking up my stairs to get to my second story condo, and halfway up I had to catch my breath. And I finally said to myself, I need to make a change today. So I started looking for a solution. Now, just because they're looking for a solution doesn't mean they're going to use you. Because here's what they're going to be doing. They're looking for solutions, and they get into kind of product aware where they're looking at different products. They're looking at you, they're looking at other personal trainers or other gyms, and they're trying to decide which is going to be the best. Now, how are we going to influence them to use us? It's more complicated than this, but there are two big ways that we can influence someone to use our product or service. Number one, we amplify the seriousness of their problem, or we create awareness of the seriousness of their problem. And I'll come back to that creating awareness in just a second. Number two, we eliminate the barriers, just like Amazon did. So if someone thinks that they can't fit exercise into their busy lives, we need to do everything that we can to eliminate that barrier of time. They don't have time. Well, what can we do? in order to make sure that they have time. And again, we can come up with ways of doing this. You might be thinking we do 30-minute sessions, or we come to them. It depends on what your product or service is, but we need to be able to communicate to them so that they say, I want to use your product or service. Now, I want to mention something else. When someone is in the solution or product-aware phase, they're trying to decide which product or service to use. There are 4 things they're considering when they're in that phase, and I'm going to give them to you now. Number 1, do I need the product? Now, if they're in the solution or product-aware phase, we already know that they need the solution. They need a product to solve the problem. So we have that one covered so far. But just because they want to have it solved doesn't mean they're gonna pick you. The second thing that they're considering is, why should I buy this product to solve my problem versus this product to solve my problem? In other words, how does this personal trainer solve my problem better than this personal trainer? Or how does Starbucks solve my problem better than 7-Eleven? Okay, if I go to Starbucks, I've got a barista and they smile at me and they interact with me and they're friendly with me. If I go to 7-Eleven, I got to get my own coffee, and I'm lucky to get a smile from the person who's at the register when I go to pay for it. So maybe Starbucks would say, with their branding and their messaging, their marketing, they say, at Starbucks, it's your third home, I think is what their message is. You got your first home, which is home, your second home, which is work, and your third home, which is Starbucks. So they make it a place where you feel at home. And one of the things that we get into a lot in our course is the elements of value. And the elements of value are where you, as a brand, tap into as many things as you possibly can to amplify the seriousness of the pain or the after state, the nostalgia, all those great things that are going to apply if they use your brand or service, and eliminate their barriers. So if you can kind of be the Disneyland and the Amazon rolled into one, the Amazon who's eliminating barriers and the Disneyland who's amplifying seriousness of pain and before and after state, you have a winning brand. You have a winning sales message. You have a winning marketing message. And again, we'll talk more in these courses about how to create those messages, but this course here is designed to really get into the mind of the customer. We're just trying to understand why they're making decisions on which brands they're going to purchase or not purchase. One of the things that we can label the barriers to your brand as are objections. So oftentimes you might recommend something to a client or recommend something to a potential member, and they give you objections. They say things like, I can't afford it. That's the most well-known and probably most used and accurate objections to purchasing from a brand. People will say, well, I don't know if I can afford that product or service. But here's the thing. If you eliminate barriers better than anyone else, you amplify the seriousness of the pain before and after state better than anyone else, you create need to solve the problem. And they start to see you as the only way that they can solve the problem. Going back to the 4 reasons why, or 4 things someone is considering when they're deciding which product to go with. The third thing is who communicates their message most clearly, concisely, and in a more relevant way. Some of the best brands aren't just the best brands because their product is so great. Some of the best brands are the best brands because they communicated their message so well. One of the companies that comes to mind when I talk about this, communicating your product or service in a clear, concise, and relevant way, is Apple. You know, if you study Apple and kind of the journey it's gone through, it did really well, and then Steve Jobs left Apple for a while. Apple almost went bankrupt. In fact, a lot of financial analysts say Apple was only about 2 to 3 months away from bankruptcy. And this was in 1997. Steve Jobs comes back to Apple. And what he realizes is they have great products, but their message was terrible. They were not communicating clearly and in a relevant way to the American people. So yes, he cleaned up a lot of things, Steve Jobs did, to make their products more streamlined and make even better products. But really, the most analysts who study this say the thing that turned Apple around was how they communicated their message. So your message is crucial. Your sales messages, your marketing messages are crucial. If you can communicate in a clear, concise, relevant way where the customer sees you as the best way to solve their problem, you're going to create those magnetic brand messages, you're going to create those magnetic marketing and sales messages. The fourth thing that someone is considering when they're deciding which product to go with, which service to go with, which one to purchase from is, can I trust them? Especially in this day and age, can I trust what this brand is saying? Can I trust this sales message, this marketing message? Becomes more and more important. And part of the reason for this is we get sold everywhere we go. We have ads we're attacked, inundated with ads. Everywhere we turn, there's ads. We're being sold by people. We walk into a store, we get sold. We hate salespeople. Nobody wants to be sold, but we do want to transform. We as human beings want to transform. We want to improve our lives. We want to go from the before state to the after state. We just don't want someone to sell us in that process. So we are always evaluating, can I trust what this brand, what this salesperson, what this personal trainer, what this marketing message is saying? So we need to create the trust. We need to be authentic with our messages, and we need to create our messages that really compel someone to act. Let me give you an example of this. And I know I've given this example in other courses probably, but I think it's relevant here. I want you to think about when you walk into a retail shop, what the salesperson says to you as soon as you walk into that retail shop. Now, most of you are probably thinking something like, they say, can I help you, or something like that. But let's go with that. You walk into the retail shop, and let's say it's been 15, 20 seconds. We walk in, salesperson approaches us, and what they say is, can I help you? Now, I want you to think about, how are you feeling when that salesperson does that? Now, everyone's going to feel a little bit different. But deep down, I think a lot of us, me included, feel a little bit claustrophobic. Like, I'm kind of just thinking, hey, I just got here, give me some space, I'll talk to you if I want to talk to you. Now think about what the salesperson is doing. They don't have bad intentions, they really just want to help you, most likely. They might be trying to sell you, but they're also probably trying to help you. But the way that they frame their message caused us to get defensive. It causes our defenses to go up. Let's change the way that message is structured. Instead of that salesperson, that retail salesperson, using the can I help you when we walk into their store, I'm going to have them do this. You walk in, the salesperson says to you, maybe 10 seconds in, hey, my name is, for me obviously my name is Joel, hey, my name is Joel, I can see that you're just looking, but I did want to introduce myself and let you know that if you have any questions, I'll be right over there. Now, you may or may not come back to me, but chances are you feel better about me than if I would have just come up to you and said, can I help you? Now, the only thing I'm trying to illustrate here is the way that you communicate your message can either cause walls to go up or cause walls to go down. We as consumers and your customers or potential customers are always evaluating situations, brands, products, services, salespeople, to see whether or not we can trust them. So again, when we're considering a brand or service, does it solve my problem? Does it solve my problem better than anyone else? Is the message communicated in a clear, concise, and relevant way? And can I trust them? Do I believe them? So I want to be considering that anytime we talk about a sales, marketing, or branding message.